Angry, frustrated, looking bleak, and then a late explosion. Nebraska beats Michigan State by double digits. Our reaction right now.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today.
All right, welcome in Sunday Reaction. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Nebraska beats Michigan State 38-27. The
Just like we drew it up, right?
Yeah,
Score sounds similar to what we said.
It is. Yeah, I think I said 30. I think I said 37-20, which it was at one point before Nebraska made an extra point, and then Michigan State got a last drive touchdown out of the game. But no, we did not get there how I thought we were going to get there. It was not pretty. The wind was a big factor, and one of the major contributing factors in Nebraska's offense really going silent for 2.5 quarters. Yeah, more than half. I mean, they didn't have the ball in the first quarter again after their first drive, after Michigan State ripped off a 17-play drive to make it 14-7.
Thanks, Mike Eckler.
And they're going up against the wind for the second and third quarter and didn't break out of the funk until late in the third or midway through the third. So
it was late.
Yeah,
it was late.
A lot.
Yeah, it was such a bizarre game. And I said 30-21 that Nebraska would win. And like you, at one point it was 30-21 before Nebraska kicked an extra point at some place in the game. It was 30-21. But I never envisioned it going in that way. In fact, to go behind the scenes a little bit on what my process entails in the game, because at The Athletic we have these instant takeaways that have to be written during the game. I start doing it as soon as I feel like I have a sense of how the game is going to end, because that then impacts the tone and, of course, the words themselves. So I couldn't get started. I didn't want to get started in the third quarter when it was 14-14. And when Raiola threw the pick, and when Michigan State went up 21-14 and Huskers didn't have an answer defensively for a period of time for what Aiden Childs was doing with his legs, looked like a combination of Brendan Sorsby and Bryce Underwood out there. Yeah. I started writing this ominous, this is a very bad moment for Nebraska. How far can we expect this team to go in 2025? Kind of summation of the game, and had to spin that thing on a dime as best I could when Dylan Raiola and the Huskers sprung to life in the last minute of the third quarter and ended up scoring 24 consecutive points, this is kind of stuff that we've not seen from Nebraska in a long, long time in a conference game, to go and score 24 straight when you're down late in the game. Yeah. So I had to completely change it, and even then go back and change it more, change the tone additionally after the story posted online. And we heard from Matt Rhule, and he said, we're not trying to prove anything to anybody. We're just going out there and playing football. That's what we want to do. This is how the Big Ten is going to be. It's hard to disagree with that. They won 38-27. They were up 38-21 with 3 minutes left in the game. You got to like that. There's plenty of things about it that you don't like, but the end result is what matters.
Yeah, the barrage of points, like you said, 24 straight, Mitch, comes directly after two of the worst quarters of offensive football I've seen from Nebraska football. I mean, it was sacks. Nothing was gelling at all. Nebraska could barely get fire off the line of scrimmage for half of this game, and then it all flipped. I got the play right here. It is so it's. I mean, let's give you the context first. So Michigan State's up 21-14, and they've taken the lead. Like you said, Childs is running. He's got the Brendan Sorsby game plan on his back. Michigan State's feeling really good about themselves. The crowd is stunned, and they're already up in a lather. Like it's getting to be, almost ugly in there. And I said before the drive to the people I was watching the game with, I said, if they go 3 and out here, because I know they're going to pass it because that's their bread and butter. If they go 3 and out here, we're going to have a real problem on our hands. It's not going to sound good inside Memorial Stadium. And well, 1st and 10, incomplete pass. 2nd and 10, incomplete pass. Dylan was hurried on the play. 3rd and 10, Ja'Cory Barney gets loose, and Dylan Raiola finds him for 45 yards, and they get it all the way down to the 30-yard line. And then 2 plays later, after 2 rushes that got 30 yards combined for Emmett Johnson, he scores a touchdown. Nebraska's tied again, and it just is like, wow. They pulled the. Give them credit. They pulled themselves out of what was a really muddy and ugly situation for half the game.
Yeah, Dylan had thrown a pick on the play previous to that possession. So when it's 14-14 and Nebraska got the ball with 6:08 left in the third quarter, really having done nothing since the opening drive on offense, frustration was building, and he tried to force a throw. It was Nebraska's one turnover of the day. He threw it into double coverage, or it was man coverage.
I don't even think he saw the guy that ended up
help. Yeah, and Michigan State picked it off, and then went 7 plays, 38 yards for the touchdown to go ahead. And it was Michigan State's first lead of the day. And like you said, it's bleak, it's dark inside Memorial Stadium at that moment. And right after Nebraska scores on the drive that you laid out, they get a turnover on special teams, which I think can lead us into talking about that. This one was a kickoff into the wind at the end of the third quarter, and Michigan State muffed the return. It was short. They had a player trying to make the catch who is normally a blocker, and Mekhi Nelson falls on the ball.
So, those times where you're like, you can see the disaster unfolding before it even like when we have the still image of 2 Michigan State, kick return guys who are not kick return guys. They're on the second lines, blocking for the kick return guys. And they're both looking up into the sky with their arms like this. 2 of them. They are not kick returners. Something horrible is about to happen. And when you add the wind in, And so Mike Eckler's group was, they got a break there. Obviously, they used the wind to their advantage. They blocked a punt that got taken back for a touchdown. Jameer Khan and Carter Nelson picked it up and scored. And there is one more special teams play, right? What am I missing?
Well, Ja'Cory Barney had a 57-yard punt return.
Barney's punt return.
That didn't lead to anything because the Nebraska offense was a disaster at that moment.
Well, and he took one back that got called back.
82 that got called back on a block in the back that was behind the play. It didn't seem, at least from my perspective, watching it live, it didn't seem to spring him, or am I wrong? Because you had maybe the advantage.
I thought, it was important. Carter Nelson came up behind the guy, and it was one of those things where it's probably like incidental, like he didn't even mean to, but Barney definitely used that and cut right behind it, and that's what kind of sprung him on the play. At least that's what I thought from the replay that they showed on TV.
All right, that's a little bit better to know, because I didn't ever see the replay. I was scribbling down notes trying to write about the demise of Matt Rhule's regime at Nebraska at that point. And actually, Nebraska was doing a little better, I think, at that moment when Barney ripped off the 82. Maybe I was writing then about the unlikely comeback. Anyway, the official who threw the flag ran in and threw it quite a ways behind where Barney was at that moment, and it appeared to be late. So my thought was, oh my goodness, whatever just happened there was trailing the play by 5 to 10 yards, and Ja'Cory didn't need it. But I'm kind of glad to hear you say that it actually did impact the play, because then it's and then it, whatever. I will say this. I will take it a step farther on what you said about Michigan State and the kickoff return and how it felt at that moment, like you could see something bad happening before it happened.
Yeah.
I felt that way, and this is such a strange sensation, but I felt that way almost every time there was a punt for Michigan State or in various special teams situations in this game. You had this feeling in the stadium like, here's an opportunity for Nebraska to do something big and swing the momentum of this game. And like 4 or 5 times, it either happened or just about happened. How did we get to this place, Connor, where the Nebraska special teams are perhaps the best thing that the Huskers have going for them in a Big Ten game?
Yeah, that's a great point. They were in control. And that feeling is like, oh wow, they might have a chance to do something. I'll say this is a factor. I mean, their punter was really, really good, and he was just zipping balls through the wind. And so in a lot of cases, Barney was like backing up on punts that were into the wind, which was kind of nuts. And there wasn't anybody within a mile of him when he went to catch it. So he had some space to move a little bit. So, you take what you're given on special teams. Nebraska's had a difficult time doing that in the past as well. They were in control of that game, and they made a few plays. This was really they've made a few plays throughout the season, but this is really the first time you could look back and say this was a giant plus impact for Nebraska in the game. And the next step is keep doing it. And you could say Nebraska has a very good special teams unit that they could trust for a play like that a game.
I'm amazed that the punter came back on the field at any point on Saturday after Jameer Khan destroyed him. That wasn't just a punt block where you kind of took it off the punter's leg. That was a punt block where he crushed Khan did. He crushed the punter. The noise that it made in the stadium when that punt was blocked and then it just bounced right into Carter Nelson's hands in the end zone for the touchdown. That was scary if you're there to watch Michigan State or know the punter. And he was laying on the turf after that. The fact that he came back in and was still able to operate was impressive. One punter who did struggle with the wind a little bit was Archie Wilson was kicking it a bit too high into the wind, and the spin on his ball when Nebraska was moving against the wind was not real effective on Saturday.
It was tricky wind day, that's for sure. When we come back, let's talk about Dylan Raiola, and of course you have to pair that conversation along with the offensive line a little bit as well. We'll be back after this on a reaction show on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Today's episode is
word. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm in the wrong break. You go ahead and tell people about Peloton.
I am going to tell you about Peloton because it's shaping the future of fitness. Peloton has something called Cross Training Thread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. If you're used to just riding the Peloton or knowing the Peloton for its bike rides, well, there's something more now out there for you. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools to help you plan, stay motivated, and reach your peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights for you, corrects your form. It makes every rep safer and smarter. And the swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. The personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Shermer with you after Nebraska's 38-27 win over Michigan State. They head into their first Big Ten road game next week against Maryland, which we'll have plenty of time to talk about all week. Maryland blew a big lead against Washington this weekend at home.
Will not be undefeated.
No. All right. Big story of the day, obviously Nebraska's offense. It struggled for a giant part of this game. Why? Well, I mean, that's sort of up for you to decide. I don't think if you ask their quarterback, I think, Dylan Raiola, I think he'd tell you, he turned some things down that were there earlier in plays. I think if you ask Nebraska's offensive linemen and coaches, they'd probably tell you, man, you got to hold them up for a little bit more time back there. It all, when it's that bad, when the results are that bad on offense, it's going to be a little bit of everything. And I thought it was. With that being said, the thing that is most painfully obvious to the eyes when you watch the game is, well, the offensive line had a tough time getting in front of anybody. And I can't I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, they were actually good. You guys didn't watch the game. No, I saw what everybody else saw. I mean, it was tough sledding for those five up front.
The possession in the second quarter when Nebraska had excellent field position right after the 57-yard punt return, that's when the consecutive sacks happened. They were statistically, it was 2 sacks and then a running play that went for a loss. But even the third down play, it was a mishandled snap or a bit of an errant snap, and Dylan recovered the ball and dropped back to try to make something happen and got snowed under for a 15-yard loss. I don't know how that's not statistically ruled a sack. He's trying to throw the football, but whatever. 5 sacks are the official count for the Michigan State defense. Really, it's 6 if you count that one. They came into the game, the Spartans did, with 6 sacks on the season against 4 opponents, and Nebraska allowed that. Nebraska allowed 3 on 1 possession. And then there was a 4th down play on a subsequent possession, 4th and 4, where Nebraska was in no man's land because of the wind. And instead of punting or, kicking a long field goal that would have been against the odds, it went and he was sacked for a 10-yard loss. Raiola in the first half was 5 of 7 for 24 yards and had 1 completion for 2 yards to a wide receiver. Even when he was getting the ball off, it was check down land to Emmett Johnson. Threw one to Lindenmeyer, that was Luke Lindenmeyer, the tight end that was completed. That was taken off the stats because of a defensive holding penalty. But there was just nothing there for Nebraska against a pass defense that rated as one of the worst in the country coming into the game. It was mind-numbing, I will say.
Yeah, I think context is probably important. Going against the wind was a really, really tricky deal.
Dylan said it didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
He said he threw it fine either way.
No, we've talked about this before with Dylan. Like when things are breaking down in front of him, his thing is to hold on to the ball. And so I think he did get to that unfortunate point during the game on Saturday that we saw, when he was really in a bad way last year, where, he even had some guys and didn't throw it because, he maybe felt like he didn't have enough time to get it there. He was kind of sped up. And when that happens to him, he takes sacks. And we had this discussion on our post-game show, and we've talked about it before, Mitch, you and I, you have a couple different kind of quarterbacks. One in Dylan does that, and he holds on to the ball a little bit too long and gets slowed down that way, and takes some sacks and kills drives that way. And then the other kind of quarterback that you see around the country is they get sped up and all of a sudden that's when the interceptions happen. So, I think there's a lot of things that you want to do to try and really speed up the mind of a pocket passing quarterback like Dylan Raiola is. Personally, I'd rather have it the way he is. I'd rather have him taking sacks than taking interceptions in my personal opinion. But it looks really, really bad when he's getting hit all over the place, his helmet's flying off 2 or 3 times during the game. Like, it's.
Did you think that was a face mask when they tore his helmet off? I didn't think so. I saw some people on social media though who said that it was a terrible call.
It got bumped. Like his helmet is clearly loose because it fell off, like I said, 2 times.
There was one time, I think it was on that 15-yard loss on the third down mishandled snap that I mentioned, the third straight sack. And I think it was just mainly frustration from the fans that were calling for a face mask. The defender pulled his helmet off, but he didn't use the face mask portion of the helmet. It was just he was tackling Dylan and it came off. Anyway, it was adding to the ugliness. He did finish respectably 16 of 24 with 1 touchdown and 1 pick for 194 yards. So the portion of the game where Nebraska scored in the first quarter, and then obviously the fourth quarter when he had the wind at his back, that helped his statistics considerably. I will say this about the wind. Nebraska won the coaching battle as far as how to strategize the wind. And you would hope that would happen when you're in your home stadium and Jonathan Smith and Michigan State are coming in and they don't necessarily know like what the tendencies are and how significant of a factor it might be. So Michigan State won the coin toss, elected to take the ball in the first quarter. Nebraska chose to have the wind in the first quarter and went up 14-0. And then in the second half, when Nebraska took the ball, Michigan State chose to take the wind in the third quarter, which is really interesting because Nebraska said that Matt Rhule said that if he had that choice in the second half, he was going to take the wind in the fourth quarter in case there was a game-winning field goal that was needed at the end of the game. Michigan State thought, all right, it's 14-14. We got these guys in somewhat of a vulnerable spot. Let's go out and take advantage of that win right now in the third quarter and put some distance between us and the Huskers. And they did go up 21-14, and Nebraska's offense continued to struggle. But having the wind in the fourth was a significant factor for Nebraska.
I wish, I don't know. I'll go back and I'll find this number after we're done here today, because I can't quite do it on well, maybe I can. So Nebraska in the third quarter, when they're against the wind, right? They run it 6 times and they pass it 7 times. They're behind the chains in most of those. In the second quarter, when they're also against the wind, they run it 14 times and they pass it 3 times. In the third
some of
quarter,
that stacks because they couldn't get the passes off. But yeah,
right. In the third quarter, I did find myself wondering, like, what are they doing? Like, why don't they just try and get to the fourth? If they're really trying to get to the fourth quarter, why don't you try and get to the fourth quarter? And how you get to the fourth quarter is you run the clock and run the ball. So a lot of that is game flow and stuff like that as well. But yeah, they didn't manage it perfectly, in my opinion, but they definitely manage it better than the other sideline.
Interesting that the big pass play for Nebraska, the one that really shook them loose, was into the wind. And that's the 3rd and 10 play that we mentioned when everything was snowballing in the wrong direction for Nebraska. And Raiola avoided pressure and got out of the pocket and found Barney, who was lost in Michigan State's secondary. The part of that play that Matt Rhule pointed out in post-game interview was that Luke Lindenmeyer came off of his assignment and made a block that allowed Raiola extra time to be able to get rid of the ball. So it took the whole part of the whole offensive lineup doing things even that weren't drawn into the play for Nebraska to make a big chunk in the passing game in that situation when the wind was in its face. And it happened, and the game just spun on that moment. Later in the fourth quarter, when Isaiah Hunter took the screen pass 59 yards and ran out of his shoe, it was like, hey, where did this come from? Where is this offense that couldn't do a thing no matter what it tried for more than half of this game?
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, still a couple more things to get to here on this reaction show. We'll be back after this. But first, this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, your whole neighborhood thrives as well. Local spots in every neighborhood come alive on Saturdays and Sundays during football season. Everyone is in team colors. I'm sure if you're in Lincoln yesterday, you absolutely saw that. Like if you were in the Mill yesterday, I'm sure there was somebody who's listening to this podcast right now who's in the Mill yesterday and thought,
one of the many locations.
Yes, one of the many locations that uses Square. You probably heard that on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. So Square is a part of your community, and they are proud to be it. They're proud to be a partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. Go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. And this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So it's a perfect day to do this if you're listening right before the NFL games start today, or even during the NFL games today. Take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Jump in at any time that you would like. Also, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. Soon enough, there will be football on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights as well, with Maction starting to get underway. I think we still got a couple weeks there. But
why did they wait? Why did they make us wait?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the baseball playoffs, but that's another thing where you could use the FanDuel Sportsbook. So do so right now. Download the FanDuel app. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet today.
All right, welcome back. Sunday reaction podcast episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I am Mitch Sherman. Connor Happer is with me. We are talking about Nebraska's 38-27 victory Saturday at Memorial Stadium. Disjointed as it was, the Huskers moved to 4-1 overall, have an opportunity to go to 5-1 next week for just the second time since 2016. Nebraska was 5-1 a year ago, you remember, before the skids. It hit the skids starting with a trip to Indiana. There is no trip to Indiana on the horizon after Nebraska's visit to Maryland next week. They'll go to Minnesota, which was taken to the woodshed on Saturday at Ohio State. So these next two games, both of Nebraska's next two opponents, the road opponents, lost on Saturday. We're not going to go too deep into what happened in the Big Ten, but there was a rather notable result at the Rose Bowl that occurred.
Whoa. Yeah, there was.
How is James Franklin today in general? Do you think?
Very good. He is not doing well. So they got a whole nother set of problems on their hands. Yeah, I mean, a lot has been made of this 4-game stretch for Nebraska. It starts with the game that they just won. Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern. They're all winnable games. They're all games in which you're probably going to be favored. Nebraska's looks like they're about to open as about a touchdown favorite against Maryland next weekend. And they're probably be slight favorites at Minnesota, and they're definitely going to be favorites at home against Northwestern. So, you got one box check. Can you go 4-0? Can Nebraska end that stretch 4-0 and head into their next portion of their season, which is against the West Coast schools and Penn State and Iowa, with a chance to, I don't know. People get all, shaky.
11-1. Are you saying 11-1? Is that what you're talking about?
People get all shaky when you say that word, and it was a shaky game on Saturday, but the record is what the record is. If you could it's game by game, man.
You, after the game yesterday, and the illustrious Matt McMaster hosted the Big Red Overreaction show, and then there is the Huskers Radio Network reaction show that I caught a bit of on my way out of Lincoln last night. And it seemed that on both of those shows, and maybe on the minds of Nebraska fans in the hours after that game, and probably still today on Sunday, there's a lot of hand-wringing and frustration about the offensive line. And we talked about the 5 sacks that Nebraska allowed. Some of that has to do with the offensive line, not all of it. The first one on that awful negative 32-yard possession came on a safety blitz where Nebraska was looking for a deep play on a quick change, and they didn't have anybody to pick up the safety. The back that's on the back if it's on anybody. So it's not all about the offensive line, but I think people are taking out their frustrations on the line right now because this was expected to be a part of the team that was strength heading into the season. Nebraska did make a big change in it before this game in taking Elijah Pritchett off the bench, playing him at left tackle, and then moving Gunnar Gatula, the left tackle for the first 4 games, over to the right side. So Teddy Prohaska took a seat, and presumably he'll serve as a swing tackle, somebody who can play right tackle and allow Gatula to go over to the left and give Pritchett a break, or perhaps Prohaska could play on either side if needed. And of course he's there in case of an injury too. So some changes made. I thought Pritchett was okay. He gave up a sack, I think 1, but man, the offensive line, like it's a source of concern.
You know what's funny? I as you're going through there, and take these numbers however you want to take them, but I have the Pro Football Focus numbers. I'm looking at them
already out. Okay,
and so Nebraska's highest 2 offensive graded players on Saturday. This is total offensive grade. Yep, they were Gunnar Gatula and Elijah Pritchett.
Nebraska, on the whole offense.
Yes, Nebraska's lowest graded offensive player is their quarterback, Dylan Raiola. So once again, you believe your eyes. Believe your eyes. If you feel like it's on the offensive line, it's on the offensive line. That's obviously people's gut reaction from Saturday. I felt that way watching the game as well. But I do think that there is probably a little bit of that stuff that's on the quarterback, missing some things down the field.
He did.
So there's a little bit of that too. Emmett Johnson was next. Hunter was after that. Evans had an interesting game. Committed the personal foul, which was funny. And then
did he throw a punch on that?
He retaliated with a little bit of that. So so each of Nebraska's five offensive linemen were graded as, like 5 of the top 7 players on offense for Nebraska.
Oh, sure. Okay. Wow. That is a different spin on this game than the first watch through live at the stadium went.
Lutovsky was toward the bottom. So they were hard on Lutovsky, but Gatula, Pritchett, Evans, and Spindler all graded out pretty well.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about the O-line, I think, as the week goes on. I know Matt Rhule will address that on Monday more in depth because he'll have seen the game film. He's seen the game film by now. And then really going to be an interesting conversation with Dana Holgorsen about rhythm and how Nebraska can't really afford too much more this season to go through 30 to 35 minutes of football where the offense just doesn't have its stuff intact. And some of that, the players are going to say, hey, it's on us. The coaches are going to do what they do. It's on us to go out there and make the plays. We heard some of that from Nebraska players on Saturday. But I thought that Dana could have been doing a better job to help with a little bit more creativity. You mentioned the run-pass balance in the third quarter. Get Dylan out of the pocket on the edge to slow down the pass rush a bit. And they did that in the fourth quarter. I'm not sure why they felt way more comfortable doing that with the wind at their back. I mean, I guess I do understand that, but I think he should have tried some of it when you were going into the wind too. He does have a strong arm. Let's finish with a little bit of conversation about the defense and specifically the pass rush. Nebraska's pass rush got to Aiden Childs. Now, he had a nice day running the football, 66 yards gained, 23 net because the 4 sacks, he lost 43 yards. They injured him at one point. He had to go to the tent. His backup came in and threw a touchdown pass. He's a dangerous player, but he didn't hurt Nebraska, I think, as badly as might have been feared. And again, this Nebraska pass defense, look at these pass numbers for Childs, 9 of 23, no touchdowns, 2 picks, 85 yards.
Yeah, I thought the wind affected him more than Raiola on both sides. Whether it was against him or behind him, there was some crazy overthrows down the sidelines on one-on-ones, didn't even put it near. So I agree with you, Mitch. I thought Nebraska did a really good job just to disrupt him. They put him on the ground a lot. Like you said, he had to come out of the game. I thought he had. I thought they were probably looking at him for a head thing, and then later he was kind of limping around too. So I think Nebraska got him a couple different times and seriously disrupted his game. With that being said, he did get going a little bit with that run game when Michigan State tried to was starting to put it on a little bit. But yeah, they did a really nice job on him. Wind aided, but like whatever, both teams had to deal with it. So I thought Nebraska's quarterback handled the wind better than Michigan State's.
And where the sacks came from is notable too. Elijah Judy had a big one. Williams Winery was credited with 1.5 sacks, and then Javen Wright got one on a blitz that he shared with Winery. That's nice to see the defensive line getting pressure, and that it didn't have to come like on a corner blitz or a safety blitz or entirely from the linebackers. So Michigan State had been doing an all right job protecting him, and some of that is probably because of Child's escapability. But the pass rush took a step forward for Nebraska on Saturday.
Yep,
as did the run defense.
All right, that is it for us. We'll be back with you for a normal slate of pods this week, leading into the Turtle Bowl, Nebraska and Maryland, coming up on Saturday. It's another big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff each Thursday throughout the season. Drake Toll, Gary Patterson, and Jesse Holly have you covered. It is only on Fire TV.